Dear Bong Wizards, I hear that you consider yourselves mages of the highest order. I am extending this invitation to you in hopes that you will honor a modest bog witch with thy presence this 420 in my humble dungeon abode. If you decide to accept this epic quest, then rest assured I shall reward each in attendance most wickedly. Your worthy adversary, Druscilda. Free 420.
Don't you think this is a little strange? Should we go back?
Hey, doesn't that flyer say free weed?
Dude, it's not a flyer, it's addressed to us. Don't you think that's kind of fucking weird?
Not really.
Hey, is anybody home?
Yeah, we're here for the free weed.
The great and powerful Bong Wizards. I've been expecting you.
What the fuck?
Hit the lights, man!
Let's get the fuck out of here, man.
Not so fast.
Finally! Hell yeah!
I'm going to tell you how some other boys and girls got mixed up with strangers, so we can be sure it never happens to us. Remember the story about little Debbie Vincent?
Hi there, little lady. My goodness, you're all alone. Wouldn't you like to go for a ride with me? I'll buy you some ice cream.
Well, nobody saw her again.
Bong Wizard? More like Bong Lizard.
Sometimes the stars line up so perfectly, it's hard to believe your luck could be an accident. Good fortune or bad fortune, some fortune can't be explained away by logic. But rather it seems to be a Rube Goldberg mechanism thrumming in the cosmic heart of it all. This story's been attributed to acid flashbacks, psychosis, PTSD, a host of other acronyms. I'm gonna tell it to you straight, exactly as I, Artie Walsh, experienced it back in 1985. You can judge for yourself whether I'm batshit crazy or not. Officially, on the record, I'm batshit crazy. So you have the medical establishment on your side if you don't buy it. We had a string of good fortune back in 1985. That is Daisy Walker, Tuck Daniels, and myself. Tuck and I grew up across the street from one another in Twin Pines. Daisy moved there in middle school. We became fast friends. We shared a love of pot, Sabbath, D&D, slasher movies. But we damn sure peaked in '85. I somehow conned my way into working at a lab that tested the effects of marijuana on lab rats. Mostly, I didn't get to touch the stuff, but that March, they let me dispose of a strain they said that they had over-harvested. Whatever. Sure, I buried it in those concrete tubes in the ground behind the Twin Pines Mall like you asked. Just don't check my work. So I had come into a bunch of science weed, like a literal drug bust worth of science weed. Tuck worked for Twin Pines Cemetery as a caretaker. Doesn't sound like a job with perks, but Tuck, he thought differently than most. See, part of his job was to maintain this old mausoleum in the oldest part of the cemetery. It was like 300 years old and belonged to a French magician named Luc Desmarais. Fucking wild. It gets better, though. You see, when he was cleaning and dusting the nameplates, he found a hidden lower level with a fucking goat statue in it. On top of that, there's this brazier on the altar for incense, so anything you burn in there filters through the entire temple. The ultimate hotbox experience. Now Daisy, she worked over at Four Corners Pizza. Ever the thinker, well, she got to thinking. We had all the ingredients for the ultimate 420 party. Face-melting space weed, all the pizza we could eat, and an underground satanic hotbox. The story I'm about to tell you is 100% true. It's the story of good fortune, bad fortune, and the unfortunates who can't tell the difference. Above all, it's an ugly story. Tuck stood in the doorframe of the 300-year-old tomb, roach tucked between his teeth, nearly scorching his blonde mustache. I let the wheelbarrow of weed sink into the mud outside as I slung a couple of bundles over my shoulders.
Did you bring any for yourself?
Make yourself useful. We began loading the bales of weed into the crypt. It was as purple as the fucking people eater, and if it weren't sealed in lab-grade vacuum bags, I bet it'd smell better than apple pie.
Yeah, I thought Daisy was with you.
She's grabbing the pizzas. She should be here in a few. Show me this dungeon, Tucker the fucker.
Art the fucking fart. Come here.
He led me through a row of cracked marble sarcophagi, bending to open the last in the line. It clicked open, and I could hear the sounds of stone slabs sliding into place.
Alrighty, 1 second.
He produced a Zippo from his pocket and lit the sconces at the interior of the coffin. Narrow stone steps flanked by now blazing torches led into the darkness below. He began to descend, motioning for me to do the same. The steps terminated at a black marble floor, surprisingly free of dust that I had expected to find. The room at the base of the steps was small, barely enough for 10 people to stand comfortably. It was ringed with torches. Tuck must have seen to that already. At the farthest end of the room was a statue, though calling it a goat would be generous. It looked to be poured from black candle wax, its body covered with thin, spider-like veins of the stuff. It had horns. 3 of them, though. 2 were ram-like, coiling like croissants against its hideous face, which sported the 3rd and utterly alien horn. This one looked like a perfectly rigid, angular prism of an impossibly black stone. It had 8 eyes on its face, 4 per side, plus another 6 under its throat. Those looked more like pustules with crudely aware pupils staring blankly in horror.
Who dares disturb my tomb? Show yourself, so that you may be flayed of skin and prostrated upon the wheel.
I stopped cold in my tracks. What was that?
Get out here, Daisy.
How'd you know it was me?
You smell like onions. You got the pies?
Yeah, come help me bring them down.
Daisy always smelled like onions after work. She could never smell it on herself. Didn't help that she was still sporting her Four Corners polo.
I didn't have time to change, sorry.
Like she could read my mind. We wrestled with what time to hold this sacred rite. Ideas tossed around were 4:20 a.m. on 4/20, 8:40 p.m. on 4/20, logic being that it was double 4:20 and also after the cemetery closed and we all got off work. Ultimately, we decided on midnight, 4:19 into 4:20. We'd light the bales and keep feeding the fire until 7 a.m. when Tuck had to open up.
All right, everyone. Sync your watches.
We had a bit of time to kill, being as everything was loaded in by 11. We got to looking around the strange room. It was covered in tiny etched writing, mostly French and Latin, with a few languages that looked more like hieroglyphics than an alphabet. Daisy knew a bit of French, and she translated what she could, which admittedly wasn't very much.
Something about a stronghold or a castle, I think. Something else about a level below. And that must be this room. It seems like Masonic stuff. Probably where Des Mères had orgies.
Could we be standing in dried demon semen?
Oh, nasty little shitter.
Yeah, probably.
The rest of the room is essentially empty, though there were divots on the floor before the altar where it looked like you were supposed to pray before it. I didn't like looking at the thing. Its many eyes always seemed to be transfixed on some point just over your shoulder where something horrible was waiting.
Do we get started?
Alright, walk through the plan one more time. We got 5 minutes before go time.
Okay, we pour like a pound or two into the brazier above the goat head.
It's an ugly ass goat.
Hey, don't be rude to Billy.
You named it?
Guys, focus.
Okay, we dump like a pound in. We hit it with the torch. These valves on the statue should do the rest. We close that top hatch. This place will be a sweat lodge in minutes.
As we light it, right at midnight, we have to say a prayer of thanks to the goat.
Alright, but can we acknowledge that this thing is not a goat at all?
Okay, we'll call it the horned one if it makes you feel better.
Then, pizza.
Then pizza.
The minutes felt elongated and taunting, stretching for hours as we waited in anticipation. We stared blankly at our Casio wristwatches as the seconds dripped onward. 11:59:55. 56. 57. 58. 59. O horned one, accept our offering on this high holiday. The seconds continued to tick on, slowly, as if time were trudging through mud. The entire ritual only lasted 22 seconds. We sat around, trading glances and waiting for the smoke to start pouring in. Minutes passed, the heap of marijuana burning like a red-hot meteorite in the brass brazier. Finally, billows of lavender smoke began pouring out of dozens of small holes set in the ceiling. We threw ourselves towards them, inhaling as much as we could as the room filled with an ethereal amethyst mist. Then the hues contained reds, oranges, blues, deep vibrant greens, and pale yellow wisps. We got so goddamn high. We kept loading the bales, eating pizza, and listening to tunes on Tuck's boombox. By 2 a.m., we'd smoked through at least 2 pounds of the stuff. I could barely walk, and sure as shit couldn't see straight. We'd killed 3 large pizzas, drank a 12-pack of Tab, and played as much D&D as we could manage in our impairment. And that's when shit started to go south. I was nodding off when I heard Daisy scream. Well, more like yelp. She caught most of it in her throat.
The statue. What happened?
I looked over at it, its grotesque alien features seeming to pulse in rhythm with the flames. What about it?
It didn't look like that before.
Oh, shit.
What are you guys talking about? It always looked like this.
It was a goat before, and now it's...
It always looked like that to me. Why do you think I kept clarifying that this thing was distinctly unfucking goat-like? The room was drifting on its axis, breathing like a set of lungs. The corner of the temple seemed to widen so that each corner somehow appeared obtuse, walls shifting to achieve this impossible shape as I turned my head.
The walls are in English now.
What?
Til-Two, Lord of the Dread Labyrinth and Digester of Imperiled Souls, send your knights forth to ensnare your quarry and drag them to the hungering abyss below.
Stop reading it!
Above us, the sound of scuffling snapped us to attention. Fuck. Somebody must have seen the smoke and called the cops. We were fucked. Shut the fuck up. Somebody's up there.
I'm gonna lose my job.
Job? We're gonna go to fucking jail, man. Help me hide this weed.
Where?
As if in answer, the statue began lowering into the ground with a mechanical whir. Smoke billowing forth, inviting us to descend. Fuck, this seems like a bad idea. There were multiple footsteps above us. Someone began shaking the sarcophagus doorway, looking for a way to open it.
Man, what else are we gonna do? Wait for them to burst in the door and arrest us?
He was right. The shaking was getting harder as whoever was at the top of the stairs grew frustrated. We grabbed the remaining weed and tucked tail down the steps just as the lid of the sarcophagus tore loose upstairs. Torches were lit at the base of the stairs, inexplicably. Tuck went first, pocket knife forward, leading the way. Daisy and I walked abreast behind Tuck. The stairwell smelt of the grave. The walls were slick with condensation, and the angular shadows clawed like the hands of corpses against the walls, which appeared hewn from a singular, massive piece of basalt. We moved quickly as the crashing upstairs and the shambling of our pursuers echoed menacingly through the narrow tunnel. It was dark despite the torches, just bright enough to move but dark enough to conceal dangers. Finally, the stairs ended in a stone room from which a myriad of narrow and jagged tunnels, as if architected by a lunatic mind, sprawled into darkness. There was no time to be particular, and the room held nothing but the desiccated corpses of rats. It felt more like a transitional space, like stepping out of our world and into the bizarre unreality of this maze place. Tuck darted towards the widest corridor, a black stone maw that seemed to swallow him as he entered. I followed quickly to not lose sight of him. His movement was quick but furtive, like he was trying to get away from us as much as what gnashed at our ankles from the stairwell. Us? Where was Daisy? She wasn't behind me. Tuck, slow down, we lost Daisy. No response. I caught a glimpse of Tuck slipping into a downward tunnel up ahead. He had somehow slipped almost 100 feet in front of me. I couldn't leave Daisy, much less catch up to Tuck, so I doubled back. The dark black stone of the tunnel I had entered now seemed deeper and inscrutable. I didn't recall any branching paths. Had I been following Tuck and missed them? Where was the room with all the corridors? Daisy! Nothing. Daisy! Nothing. I heard footsteps, but my eyes couldn't focus in the darkness. Where had the torches gone? It was pitch black suddenly. Or maybe not so suddenly, as I can't recall seeing the lights go out. It was just pitch black. The shuffling of feet stopped. The trickling of water down the wall the only sound. I reached into my pocket and flicked on my lighter. Nothing. I mean, it lit up, but I just simply couldn't see it. The lights didn't go out. I went blind.
Artie, come here.
Her voice sounded far off. Another tunnel over, perhaps, or underwater.
Follow my voice.
Through the oppressive blackness rose a thin, red, pencil-like line before me. I couldn't feel the floor anymore. When did I last feel it? I drifted along that line, a cloud of mist, hugging the walls I could no longer sense. The tunnel was a tube, a rip in reality that could take me anywhere. Daisy had figured that out. Tuck probably had too.
Keep going.
I did. It was effortless to do so and likely impossible to stop.
Come here. Art the fucking fart.
A pink line from the darkness, wrapping around the red one. I began drifting faster, pulled by the masts of an unseen vessel on the ethereal tides. I could feel the realities of the maze, past, present, and future, irrelevant as those descriptors now felt to me. A maze that never ended, that was everywhere and every when.
I've been wandering the grave for centuries, Art.
A shadow, perhaps in the shape of a man.
Do you want to see what the soil showed me?
I saw Templar knights wandering through catacomb and ruined temple. Sorcerers clawing across the refuse-strewn floors in its deep carnal pits, mad with desire, scouring its endless depths for secrets and power. Tunnelers from the far future or the distant past, or some other world entirely. Alien technology, indistinguishable from magic. These images passed by my eyes in fleeting flashes. Fingernails breaking against the floor as the desperate bodies struggled to navigate the constricting and coiling corridors, wandering into the bowels of a snake.
The whole world, all that we know, is sculpted from the soil. For 100 years I crawled, and I fought for nothing. I can hear the whispers of the earthworms now. They're begging me to drag us all to hell.
The shadow, a skeleton now, pulling itself free from mountains of earth. Mostly I could see the dead now, wandering into the tunnels through the gate that we had left open, wandering into and joining a world of innumerable dead, waking their brothers and sisters, calling forth from the labyrinth of endless, mind-shattering torment those who have died here, those who still wander in the worlds between, to the hungering, furious dead who hate the ignorant living.
We'll be here forever, Art. You might as well have a look around.
Putrid vistas of sprawling mazes, tunnels and subterranean temples assaulted my mind, dripping with viscera, filled with soil, hungry, angry, laughing soil. I heard them everywhere, digging their bodies out of holes through layers of rock, snapping their bones back into working shape and shuffling towards the surface. A path I could not discern that seemed to call to them the way that Daisy and Tuck had called to me. This place, this pit of grave soil, shepherding and collecting the dead, the dreaming, the wanderers, a corpulent, gluttonous being that would gorge itself upon flesh, living and dead alike, until one day it belched forth the bent and broken souls in their half-digested state to descend upon the world like armies of molten rock embracing Pompeii. I knew they were around me, the angry floating dead. I knew they were going to the surface to feast on a dreaming world. I knew I would die in the tunnels and join them. But I didn't. I awoke with Tuck and Daisy in the temple at 6:30 a.m. by our synced-up wristwatch alarms. First, I simply chalked it up to dreams. We didn't even talk about it. Why would we? In 2005, Daisy and I returned to Twin Pines Cemetery for Tuck's funeral. He had died of a sudden heart attack in his sleep. A 99-cent book of mazes and puzzles on his nightstand. All of them solved. That was the first time Daisy and I ever spoke about our experience 20 years earlier. We had both suffered from recurrent dreams in the decades between, and we had developed functioning but barely level coping mechanisms. These dreams were always of the limitless hallways and tunnels below the mausoleum, and the angry hordes of dead waiting to break free. We kept in touch over the following 6 years, exchanging an email or two when we had a dream that bothered us particularly. We both saw Tuck wandering the maze now. Neither of us said it out loud, but we were both thinking it, feeling it very deeply. The inevitability that we'd end up there sooner or later. Probably sooner. In 2011, I once again returned to Twin Pines Cemetery, this time for Daisy's funeral. She suffered a hit and run while out jogging. Her running app posted her route automatically to Facebook, showing her last 45 minutes as a looping, meandering red line on an app. A maze of suburban streets and cul-de-sacs. A digital tombstone. A map of her final descent. The dreams became more frequent, and I suspected that that meant something. I now saw Daisy and Tuck in the maze, but they never seemed to acknowledge me. For 13 years I have waited, and last night they called to me. This time tomorrow, reckon where I'll be, down in some lonesome valley, hanging from a white oak tree. I can hear the song of the soil calling me, not calling me back, but reminding me that I never left. Or more accurately, that I've never been anywhere else, because there is nowhere else. So yeah, that's the story. And I don't really care if you believe it. I just needed to say it fully and completely one final time. I don't suspect I'll have any more details to add.
Harris Labs report on strain 426, March 10th, 1985. The rats have been exhibiting strange behavior, where strains 411-425 caused nearly universal anxiety and panic in the rats, leading to limited success in the maze. Rats administered strain 426 seems to be unwilling to leave the maze behind, even with the cheese removed. They seem not only content to wander endlessly, they sleep restlessly and show negative emotional responses when removed. March 12th, 1985. 7 rats in the experiment have died of heart failure. Only 3 of the original test subjects remain. the 3 that had been left to wander the maze. March 14th, 1985. Strain 426 deemed a failure. Though they engaged with the test adequately, they showed dangerous levels of psychic response. Worse still, we have reason to believe our initial findings indicate the psychic activity may have been linked to their cause of death. It is unclear if the rats themselves chose to direct the energy toward themselves, or if it was simply beyond their ability to harness. Though promising, it is unlikely strain 426 could lead to the formation of dimensional gates without significant risk in human subjects. March 15th, 1985. Employee 233, Walsh Artie, assigned to dispose of strain 426 in containment units.
Wakey, wakey, morning bakey. I'm so glad you accepted my invitation. I'm your #1 fan.
Hey, lady, you got any food back there?
Water, please. Oh man, are you selling any of that shit?
Have you boys ever heard of hobbling before? Almost done. Just 5 more.
Oh, come on, let us go.
Yeah, we have tour dates, like May 18th in San Diego, and May 19th in Los Angeles, and May 20th in Las Vegas, and May 21st in Salt Lake City, and May 23rd in Tacoma, and May 24th in Portland, and May 25th in Eugene, and May 27th in San Francisco.
I knew you'd leave me once the weed jar ran dry. I knew your legs would someday heal. You have nothing to be afraid of. I am your biggest fan. Go! You heard me. Go on, get! Go! Nobody wants you around here. Yes. Go. Go on tour, you crazy, beautiful bong lizards. Obey. Disciples of Druscilda, obey Druscilda.